Is Michigan set to surprise the doubters this season? Joe Klatt seems to think so, and Sharon Moore isn't backing down from it either. Up next on Point a Minute. Welcome to the Point a Minute show on Michigan football at the voice of college football, where we average one outstanding point for every minute of video. My name is Cliff. His name is Mac. Let's get into it. Michigan won the 2023 national championship. I'm not sure if you heard about this. They won it fair and square, according to Charles Baker, the president of the NCAA. And I'm just going to keep saying that. Michigan won the 23 national championship fair and square. Go ahead. You say it. It's fun.
Michigan won the 2023 national championship fair and square.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, typically, teams would be reloading after winning a national championship because you think all of the infrastructure is there and you're good to go. But Michigan has had a change in coaching staff and a lot of experienced players left for the NFL. As fans, I think we've tempered our expectations a bit because we want to be realistic about it. We don't want to be the typical arrogant Michigan fan that we've been labeled as, and which we're fine with. But we've heard recently from players, from Isaiah Hole, from Sharon Moore himself, and now from Joel Klatt that maybe we shouldn't have to lower our expectations. Now, Mac, we've looked at this interview by Joel Klatt. What are the factors he's holding up as evidence that Michigan could win the Big Ten again?
Yeah, so first and foremost, what he's saying is that, Michigan plays smash football, smash mouth football, that kind of, I really wanted to figure out how to fit in a smash mouth joke there. And it didn't happen. You can't make a joke from smash. They're just that awesome.
I'm a believer.
I
think you could do it.
I really could have. I tried maybe the all-star thing. It's not going to work. Michigan plays smash mouth football. That's the difference. Michigan's playing smash mouth football while everyone else plays like it's 60 minutes of the skill challenges at the Pro Bowl. Ohio State, Oregon, USC, they've all got skill players and they're absolutely loaded at those positions. You love to see it. But for the entirety of the Harbaugh era, Michigan played smash mouth football, and that worked pretty much every year until they hit Ohio State. And then they needed to adjust the defense in order to keep up with them. Didn't quite happen under Don Brown. It happens. Now, all of a sudden, Michigan switches up the defense to back away from blitzing so much like Don Brown wanted to do because they've got the D-line play to stop the run without having to bring in the secondary to help out. So the secondary can stay in coverage, and suddenly those skill players that Ohio State loves to rave about don't matter because the quarterback keeps running out of time to throw the ball. That type of football, it's just not changing in Ann Arbor. We've heard Kurt Campbell say that the playbook is being opened up, and that does imply a little bit more passing. But we've also heard that Alex Orji might have a completion percentage issue, so maybe actually the playbook stays closed. Actually, I think it's kind of like this. So Orji's real strength, and I think Michigan's real strength on offense this year with him at quarterback, is that he just presents another way for Michigan to run the ball. So Michigan gets to stay with their smash mouth identity, but also add to it by having a running quarterback. Now, secondly, nothing about Michigan's culture changes with this transition from Harbaugh to Sharon Moore. In fact, the guys who are a part of building the culture are all pretty much still there. So you've got Sharon Moore as the head coach, who was huge with the culture change. You've got Kurt Campbell as the OC, who J.J. McCarthy raved about. You've got you're bringing in Wink Martindale, the guy who invented the defense that finally vanquished Ohio State. And you're bringing in a couple of great coaches in Tony Alford and Lou Esposito, who have talked a lot about Michigan's toughness. Lou Esposito actually represent D-line coach from Western Michigan, got a couple of guys in the NFL, love it. He's actually Michigan's highest ranked recruiter right now, and I believe in the Big Ten and nationally, I want to say. Michigan's highest ranked recruiter in both of those categories. Not that he's the highest recruiter in the nation and the Big Ten, just for Michigan. I wanted to make sure that was clear because I really felt like some troll was going to come in the comment section for us on that one.
Oh, they will.
Yeah. So the culture has remained intact, and the way they approach the game is still intact. Plus, they just simply do not buy that there's going to be a drop-off. Maybe they do lose a game or two this season. Maybe Ohio State's roster is just that good this year. Maybe it finally happens for them. Either way, this isn't a situation where, Michigan just had 3 good seasons under a Hall of Fame coach. and then they revert back to the mean. No, it's not going to be like that. Ohio State is going to need to prepare for a fight against Michigan this year, the same as they have every other year, especially 21, 22, and 23.
Let's talk about physical playing style. What are we looking for to back this up? Are we talking QB protection, solid O-line, D-line, unstoppable running backs?
So, yes, pretty much all of it. I mean, but I think it really does come down to the line play. Michigan is not taking its focus away from developing the trenches and forcing the opponent to play that way. It's kind of funny. I was writing this script out and I thought about it for a second. I was like, I remember when we were thinking that Harbaugh needed to adapt to the way football was being played in the late 20-teens. Everything was going basketball on grass, I think was the term, and it's not a euphemism. That's just, basketball on grass, I guess. And we were like, Harbaugh needed to adapt to that. And he kind of did with a more mobile quarterback approach, although not necessarily the case in 2021, but whatever. But he got quarterbacks who could air the ball out a little bit more. There was downfield passes. There was some over the middle of the field, I should say, that kind of stuff. He did those things, but he also maintained that the game is won in the trenches. And so, yeah, he got some quarterbacks who had good arms. He got Shea Patterson, Cade McNamara, J.J. McCarthy, and he asked them to throw the ball enough to make the defense respect their passing game. But the game was always going to be won in the trenches. And you saw that with Hassan Haskins in 2021. You saw that with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards in 22, and then again in 23. And now in 24, you've got Donovan Edwards again. You've got Khalil Mullings. And now Alex Orji is potentially a mobile quarterback that they can run with too. I mean, that's what it means to be mobile. You can run with him. And so he just adds another attack feature to this run-first offense, which is kind of awesome for them. So in terms of exactly like what we're looking for, basically the exact same thing we've seen from Michigan since 2021, a respectable passing game with great line play and an unstoppable running back tandem.
One other thing is culture. Let's talk about team culture. So last year, Michigan was able to stick together because of the cheating allegations. They had that going on. They had each other's backs. They were seen as the villain, and they kind of leaned into that as a team, and that brought them together in an effort to prove everyone wrong, which they did because they won the national championship. Fair and square, I might add. I don't know if you heard about that.
I heard about it.
Is there enough of that this year built into that culture to bring the team together? What do they have this year?
I had a lot of notes here on, Michigan's culture and what that's meant for them so far. And the fact that Michigan has had great teams under Harbaugh, but the culture wasn't quite there to get them over the hump. You can even look at 2007, Lloyd Carr's last year for a team that was absolutely stacked, but due to culture issues and overconfidence issues, lost to a certain college in the Appalachian Mountains. Appalachian State. Good job, guys.
The game that we will not speak of.
Even though we just did. We just did, yeah, and we do a little. So anyway, but I guess in terms of what, I don't think really all of that matters this year. I think in terms of what they've got this year, they've got guys who are ready to get better for the sake of the team. I was listening to an interview. I can't remember. I think it was a press conference that Samaj Morgan did. It was either Samaj Morgan, Tyler Morris, or Freddie Moore, I think is his name. I can't remember who it was, but it was one of those three guys, I'm pretty sure. And they said that Ron Bellamy, the wide receiver coach, always likes to say things like no block, no rock. So essentially, if you're going to be a wide receiver and come to Michigan, you got to be cool with stock blocking. And frankly, I think if you are a good wide receiver and yet you still come to Michigan and you're okay with stock blocking, you fit into the culture. And that's kind of the culture. Now, extrapolate that to every position. Everybody wants to get better for the sake of the team, not themselves. So what do they have to feed off of this year? I mean, every single Ohio State fan is looking at the under for Michigan's season win total and putting every last dime of their unemployment check on it. Everyone thinks Michigan is going to take a step back this year, except for Michigan. And having that belief is huge. Now look at the schedule. It's not a cakewalk for most of the season like Ohio State's is. Michigan may in fact lose more games this year than they have in a while, and that doesn't mean that they took that much of a step back. They might take half a step back this year and still end up losing 2 or 3 games. That's just because the schedule got that much tougher. But either way, they're still in the mix and they shouldn't be overlooked.
We keep hearing about Michigan's elite defense. Obviously, last year they had an elite defense, and now they're talking about this year. Not only do they have an elite defense, but it might even be a better defense. What is the evidence to back this up? Do we have player information, practice footage, reports? How are we looking at that?
Yeah, so I've been listening to a lot of Isaiah Hole lately, and he is just absolutely raving about this 2024 Wolverines defense. So first and foremost, what I thought was interesting, I'm still learning more about what we can expect at this point. But from what I understand, transfers are helping, but they're filling out depth rather than actually being some starting pieces, which I thought was kind of interesting. You know, we thought that Michigan brought a lot of these transfers in to be starters due to, you know, we had Samaj Bridgman, Jeremiah Beasley, DJ Waller, Keon Sabb, all transferring out. Rod Moore gets injured. He's out for the season. We thought that these players like Jaden Mangum, Wes Walker would be coming in to fill some starting gaps. But no, it actually kind of sounds like they're taking a back seat to some players that were already on the team. Now, that doesn't mean that they're bad or doesn't mean that they couldn't start necessarily. It just means that Michigan is kind of leaning in the direction towards starting players that they've actually already been developing for a little bit. And so that kind of makes you feel pretty good about some of the depth pieces that we've got for Michigan's defense. We are hearing that things are really looking good for Jair Hill in terms of taking that left cornerback spot opposite of Will Johnson. Jayshon Barham, we've been hearing a lot about him doing really well, having a really good fall camp at that middle linebacker position. Quentin Johnson actually looks to be the front runner for starting at free safety. That was the position that they brought in Jaden Mangum from Michigan State in. He was frankly their best player at defense. Honestly, probably one of the only bright spots on the team last year, frankly. But it sounds like Quentin Johnson might actually be the favorite for starting there. So that's kind of interesting. But Jaden Mangum's a really good player, so that he's definitely going to be helpful in that rotation. The other thing that I think is really interesting about Michigan's defense this year is how they're teaching defensive theory. So Angelique Changelis asked Wink Martindale about this idea that Martindale brought up about teaching a positionless defense. So I'm learning more about this myself. I've never heard of this idea, but essentially it's the idea that they take more of a holistic approach to teaching the players defensive theory. So the result being that basically any player can essentially play any defensive position, you know, to a point, but they can just step in wherever. And that would just give Michigan a ton more options of personnel on defense, which would be awesome. If I haven't said that enough, it's awesome. Everything's awesome.
You know what else is awesome? Michigan won the national championship fair and square.
Fair and square. You know what I was thinking? That's my favorite square right next to SpongeBob.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Another great square.
That's what we think. Let us know what you think. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. If you want more great college football analysis, don't forget to check out all of the shows on Michigan football at the Voice of College Football. You've got John D'Adamo, TJ Ronin, and you've got Ferris Khan, all putting out great content. You can also catch Mac and I live Monday nights right here on YouTube on the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show. It's a different channel, still a great show. Mac, take us out.
This is Michigan football at the Voice of College Football.